What happens when two of the world's most stable trading partners suddenly find themselves on opposite sides of a tariff war? That's exactly the situation Sweden faces today, as growing tensions with the United States threaten to shake the foundations of global trade. If you thought Sweden's peaceful export-driven economy was immune to global disputes, think again. Right now, Sweden is navigating a delicate balancing act between protecting its industries and preserving its long-standing ties with the US, and trust me, this is a story with twists you won't want to miss. Before we dive into the heart of Sweden's strategy, if you're finding this topic as fascinating as we do, go ahead and hit that like button and share this video with others who follow global economics. It really helps us out and keeps these stories coming your way. To understand how we got here, we have to look back to when the Trump administration launched its America First policy. This wasn't just a catchy slogan, it came with a set of aggressive protectionist measures, including hefty tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Those tariffs sent shockwaves through global markets, particularly in the European Union, where many industries depend on those materials. For Sweden, a country with a highly export-oriented economy, it was an unwelcome development. Sweden has always been a champion of free trade and globalization. So when the United States slapped a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum, Swedish officials didn't stay silent. Benjamin Dyer, Sweden's Minister for International Development Cooperation and Foreign Trade, publicly warned that tariffs often disrupt economies and rarely benefit anyone in the long run. Sweden knew it needed to act fast but wisely. Rather than going it alone, Sweden turned to its European Union partners. The message was clear: unity is strength. Swedish leaders pushed for a collective measured response, making sure any retaliation was carefully calibrated. It's not just about protecting Sweden's own economy. It's also about standing together with other EU nations to show that they won't be pushed around easily. But steel and aluminum are only part of the problem. Sweden is keeping a close eye on the possibility of future tariffs targeting other vital sectors like automotive and household appliances. If you are familiar with brands like Volvo and Scania, you already know how crucial these industries are to Sweden's economic health. A full-blown trade war hitting those sectors could ripple across the entire economy, and Sweden is preparing for that worst-case scenario. Behind the scenes, Swedish companies aren't sitting back waiting to see what happens. Major players across industries like engineering, pharmaceuticals, you name it, are in talks with their US partners, quietly mapping out contingency plans. From adjusting supply chains to exploring new logistics strategies, they are working through endless what-if scenarios because in today's global economy, standing still is not an option. At the same time, Sweden is broadening its horizons. US tariffs may close one door, but Sweden is already opening others. Swedish businesses are actively exploring new markets across Asia, the Gulf countries, and Africa. These regions are booming with demand for the kind of high-tech innovation Sweden is famous for. By diversifying its trade partnerships, Sweden reduces its reliance on the US and taps into emerging opportunities that could define the next decade. But here is where things get even more interesting. As the EU crafts its list of retaliatory measures against the US, Sweden's role becomes increasingly important. Should Sweden take a firm stance and actively participate in collective retaliation? Or should it focus on protecting its long-term global business relationships? It's a tough balancing act, and the stakes couldn't be higher. If you have made it this far, I'm curious, what do you think Sweden's best move is? Should they play hardball with the US or prioritize keeping the peace for the sake of business? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you see this unfolding. One sector feeling the pressure more than most is Sweden's automotive industry. Tariffs can hit car makers like Volvo and Scania hard, forcing difficult decisions about whether to stay competitive in the US market or pivot elsewhere. Can these industry giants afford to lose their foothold in America, or will they innovate their way through these challenges? The coming months will give us answers, but for now, uncertainty looms large. Interestingly, the biotech and life sciences sectors may have a slightly easier time weathering the storm. These industries are less directly exposed to tariffs and benefit from Sweden's reputation as a top-tier hub for health technology and biotech investment. However, there are growing concerns that the ripple effects of the trade war could spill over into clinical trials and pharmaceutical trade. With so much collaboration between Swedish and American researchers, companies are walking a tightrope to keep those partnerships intact while navigating the shifting trade landscape. The bigger picture here is that a prolonged trade war would wreak havoc on global supply chains. For a country like Sweden, where the automotive industry is tightly interwoven with both European and American markets, drawn-out tariffs would create inefficiencies, higher production costs, and ultimately higher prices for consumers. And let's be honest, nobody wins that scenario. But where there is crisis, there is also opportunity. Sweden is uniquely positioned to turn this challenging period into a strategic advantage. By doubling down on cutting-edge engineering, green technology, and sustainable solutions, Sweden can lead the charge into emerging markets. There is growing demand across Asia and Africa for exactly the kind of innovations Sweden excels at. Instead of retreating, Sweden is leaning in and using this as a moment to reinvent its global presence. There is also talk of strengthening Sweden's already impressive startup ecosystem. If Sweden can channel its entrepreneurial spirit into developing next-gen technologies, especially in environmentally friendly sectors, it can secure a place as a global leader in the industries of tomorrow. That's a smart long-term play, no matter how the tariff disputes shake out. Of course, none of this is simple. Diplomatically, Sweden has to walk a fine line. It needs to support the EU's collective stance against aggressive US trade policies while also keeping the door open to dialogue and compromise. No one wants this trade war to drag on longer than it has to, and there is still hope that Washington and Brussels might find common ground before things spiral out of control. If they do, Sweden could avoid the worst of the fallout and come out stronger on the other side. So where does all this leave us? Sweden finds itself at a pivotal moment. How it responds to these trade tensions with the United States will shape its economy for years to come. Through a mix of short-term defensive measures and long-term diversification strategies, Sweden is doing what it does best: staying resilient, staying innovative, and staying ready for whatever comes next. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest updates. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next video.